And then there's what happens when you follow all that advice. You get a big break. And tonight, we feature the man who runs Rich Management. His name is Aly-Khan Satchu. After studying law at the University of Durham, he has spent 15 years in the UK banking sector, controlling funds to a tune of $17 billion. He was the treasurer and director of all collateralized lending at ANZ Investment Bank. And before moving back home, he was in charge of emerging market financing and short-term interest rates. He returned to Nairobi in August of 2006, and then he published his book, Anyone Can Be Rich. That's the title of the book, based on the NSE and the Kenyan economy. He has been an active investor at the Nairobi Stock Exchange, the Uganda Stock Exchange, and various other African stock markets. Today, Aly-Khan Satchu runs Kenya's only online financial portal, Rich. Aly-Khan Satchu was born in Mombasa and is also the brain behind mindspeak, a monthly business networking event organized by Rich Management. He told KT's Joy Dorimbira about his big break.
I went to boarding school in Nairobi, and then I went to school in the UK, university there, and I'd always wanted to be a banker. Numbers were my passion. I used to, from a young age, imagine that I had been given a portfolio of money to look after, and I used to play a make-believe game, and I'd check it all the time, and I was always fascinated by that. So I'd always wanted to go into the banking world, and I got my first job. I got the lowest job in the bank, a bank called Credit Suisse First Boston. My first job was to print the contracts, physical contracts, of all the transactions that were being done in the bank. My big break came when I was working in the bank. You know, I was like the man polishing the shoes of the football players, and I wanted to be that football player. And after about 6 or 9 months, I had to go to the deputy chairman's office, and I can still remember him. He was European aristocrat, 6'3", Gucci loafers, you know, that huge Cohiba cigar. And I said to him, Johan, I want 5 minutes of your time. And he said, okay. And I shut the door. I said, look, you know, I'm working in this place, but I don't want to be there. I want to be over here. I want to be on the pitch, you know. And he wrote a letter on my behalf to 6 different heads, one of whom was a chap called Bob Diamond, who then became the CEO of Barclays Capital, and has just raised £300 million to invest in Africa. And I sat in front of Bob, and I said to Bob, how much does that man cost you? Because Bob ran the whole trading floor, 500 people, it was like a football pitch. And he said, that man cost me $1 million, Aly-Khan. I still remember him. And I said, that guy? He says, that guy cost me even more. I said, I'm going to cost you £4 an hour. And if I don't succeed, get rid of me. And he looked at me. And he said to me, okay, that's fine. And that's when I got my break. You know, I had a really successful career in the UK. I look back on it and look at the size of my balance sheet was, you know, half the GDP of Kenya. And it was an extraordinary thing that had happened. I had people in New York and Tokyo. I remember I used to call my parents because I'd be eating at a lovely restaurant. My father loves good food. And one of the fun things was to tell my dad, Dad, do you know where I am today? Do you know what I'm eating? Of course, in those days, you couldn't take photographs and put it on Instagram like you can now. So it's a very happy time, really enjoyed it. But when I turned 40, I just suddenly started thinking to myself, you know, Africa was going to take off. You know, I've been watching Africa since I was born. I didn't want to be sitting at a desk in London when it was going to take off. Plus, I realized that, you know, we're not like a developed economy. You've got to get to know people, build your relationships. That takes time. And in my experience, you know, it takes at least 5 to 7 years to get your career really moving fast and in the right direction that you want to do. So I thought, look, I've made some money. I can now come back, work out how I get involved, work out what business I do. Fortunately, I don't have to find something immediately. I can work my way around it. So I believed in the Africa Rising narrative. I didn't want to be at a desk watching it. I wanted to be back in it. and more than that, I suppose, you know, I am an African, and I think I was yearning to be back in my continent amongst my people, and I think it was an emotional time. I was passionate about being here. This was my moment to get here, and I wanted to be running a trading desk. I wanted to get to a position like Bob Diamond, and I had my first step on the ladder. And there are two things I've learned in that journey. One is never get overpaid, because in life the overpaid people get fired first. And this was one of my early bosses told me that, and I believe that. So I think that that is one lesson I would give. And then you've got to work harder than everybody else. You know, I believe in Malcolm Gladwell. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but he's a fantastic writer, well worth reading. And he's analyzed success, and he says the tipping point in success, in personal success, is 10,000 hours. And if you look back at whether you're a violin virtuoso, or you're the Beatles, or you look at all the Bill Gates, all these people put in the hours. And I would say that definitely, without doing that, nothing's going to come to you. So very passionate, and I think you've got to be patient. You know, I find a lot of people come to my office and they're impatient. They want it to happen yesterday. They haven't got a strategy of how to make it happen, right? So the key thing is to put yourself in a place where then you can make it happen for you, whatever you're doing. And the journey to that place sometimes takes time, and sometimes it's very momentary. It's like being in a lift with someone, having a split second, and you've got to make an impact so that you can come back and try and do something.